My name is Ben Gubit, Associate Director over here at American Promise, and welcome to the first American Promise Citizen Uprising core team call. This is a call that's going to happen the second and fourth Thursday of each month, so make sure to mark your calendars. Tonight, I think it's going to be a particularly unique call, and probably unlike any you've ever been on before. We have a really special guest with us, and I'm going to make a few opening remarks and then ask our founder and CEO, Jeff Clement, to tell us briefly about his recent speaking tour throughout 8 cities in Florida. And then I'm going to introduce Sam Daley-Harris, who's going to teach us a laser talk on the 28th Amendment and lead a brief training on writing letters to the editor. So we'll be urging you to write letters to the editor over this month and next, and this training is the kickoff. So for those that have been on a few of these calls before, I always like to start with a quote, and I'd like to start with this quote that's attributed to Mark Twain. It reads, "The 2 most important days of your life are the day that you are born and the day that you find out why." Again, the 2 most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you found out why. I say that you are all on this call because you're in touch with the why. You're clear that you're on this planet to make a difference and to give back and leave the campsite just a little bit cleaner than we all found it. And I think overturning Citizens United is a clear path to doing that. So I want to do a couple things before I hand it over to Jeff. The first is to tell you how excited I am to introduce Joyce Sanchez, the newest member of American Promise, who's going to be working as an organizer. This is her first week and just started. So welcome, Joyce.
Hey, everybody. It's Joyce here.
Hi.
I'm so excited to be working with all of you.
Thank you. Thanks, Joyce. Okay. And then the other thing I want to do is clarify real quickly before we get into it the difference between the Citizen Uprising core teams and these core team conference calls and the American Promise Associations, or as we like to call them, APAs. One of the ways American Promise is different is our commitment to transpartisan work, finding ways to work with Democrats and Republicans and independents and inspire them to lead on the 28th Amendment. And another way that American Promise is a little bit different is our commitment to really supporting action and to building teams to work together. So with the Citizen Uprising actions happening in all 50 states by the end of 2018, we don't necessarily have time to build teams and travel to all the American Promise Association launches in all 50 states by the end of 2018. And that's why we have also started the Citizen Uprising core teams. So you can just declare yourself a core team member and jump on our core team conference calls the second and fourth Thursday of the month at 8:30 p.m. Eastern every time. And we'll encourage you to bring others to the core team calls. We hope that you'll gather a group together and join in on these calls as a group rather than being alone. So please join us in either joining a Citizen Uprising core team call or asking our staff support in launching new APAs, or American Promise Associations. The APAs are where we work with you to build a team around you, and then we travel to your city to launch the APA, as I'll do this Saturday for the APA launch in St. Paul, Minnesota, actually in Edina, Minnesota, which we're really excited about. So we'll send a form out tomorrow so you can signal your commitment to joining the core team. So be looking for an email from me coming out sometime early tomorrow. So let me turn it over to Jeff Clement real quick, our founder and CEO, and ask him to give just a brief update on his 8-city speaking tour in Florida. Jeff, go ahead and tell us about it.
Great, thanks, Ben, and hi, everybody. Good to hear from so many friends around the country. I know we've been together in many of your states and towns, and some new folks as well. So it's really great you're all here. You know, I went from Wyoming to Washington State, and then down to Florida, and just get encouraged every time I get out there at how many great people are trying to get this done, to win this 28th Amendment and renew our democracy. So I'll tell a little bit real briefly about Florida, and I would be remiss if I didn't lead with a big shout out to Ray Claire Johnson. The cap. What's that? Yeah,
ahead,
Ray
Jeff.
Claire Johnson. Yeah, Ray Claire Johnson's the captain, as many of you know, of our Tampa Bay American Promise Association. And she and Cora Koska, another member of that American Promise Association, just put together a terrific tour. We went through 8 cities, starting in the Panhandle, right by southern Alabama, as they call it there, I learned, and drove down the Gulf Coast, across the Everglades, and back up the other coast at around Fort Lauderdale towards Orlando, stopping in places and along the way, cities and towns, to meet with people who wanted to join this citizen uprising, who wanted to hear more about it, to learn what has happened in the country that led us into this state of a money-dominated, corrupt and system that's kind of spinning out of control a little bit, and how we can get it back as citizens with the 28th Amendment. So some of these events were small group meetings about people who might want to get something going in Florida, like so many of you are doing in your states, and others were more public events. And I'll just highlight a couple of them. We don't have time to go over the whole tour, but I was struck in Fellsmere, Florida, where we stopped. It's and I just was walking towards the place where we were going to meet, and there's a sign that said that Fellsmere was the first town in Florida where women were allowed to vote, and that was in 1915. And I learned in this town of Fellsmere about Mrs. Zena Dreyer, who was the first woman to cast a vote in 1915, not only in Fellsmere, not only in Florida, but anywhere south of the Mason-Dixon line. And it was really fitting as we went in to talk about the 28th Amendment to learn that in that town in 1915, a citizens' uprising started where they just said, we will be equal, women will vote, and it led and was a big part of the movement to the 19th Amendment and women winning the equal right to vote in 1920. So we walk in Mrs. Zena Dreyer's shoes in our fight, and we had a great time in Fellsmere, and as in other places, asked folks to, if they liked what they heard, and what they often heard would be Ray Clare leading with our movie, a very short video about Lewis Powell and the corporate rights movement that started, that led the way to Citizens United, and a brief discussion about that problem in Florida, and then I would join Ray Clare and walk through the pathway and the strategies with American Promise on the 28th Amendment and what we can do in Florida, including, as elsewhere, a statewide ballot initiative effort. And so we asked people to sign up for core team, for participating as core team members, for starting up American Promise associations, and for supporting American Promise as a member. And that's really important too, because we're all stronger if we can say, as we can, that we are a membership organization with Americans from all over the place. And so numbers matter. It gives us more weight when all of us go in and talk with our representatives. So people did join, people did sign up, and I know a couple are on this call as core team members. And people did agree, and Ray Clare is following up with them too, and we're excited to start up some local associations in some of these towns. In Sebring, Florida, we went on with new members like Jim Upchurch and Connie Savaris, who signed up for the core team and to get the uprising going there and help organize others for the ballot initiative. In the villages, the town, we had 125 people, super fired up, also joining that. And then in Naples, my last comment on the Florida trip, I was inspired to meet Betty Gissendanner, a woman who was so excited, is going to help. She's got 2 events already planned. She's really working the phones, working with Ray Clare, and it's just going to have a big impact in making it realistic to think we can get enough volunteers to actually get the hundreds of thousands, even up to 1 million signatures we're going to need in a Florida ballot initiative. And as we were leaving, Betty handed me her card so we could stay in touch. And I was so pleased to see on her card not only the American flag, but it said Betty Gissendanner, and under that, Mother of an American Soldier. And it's the kind of people I'm meeting all over the country. They're patriotic, fired up, determined to save our democracy. So it was a really inspiring trip for me, and I look forward to working with the folks in Florida and all over the country and all of you to win this, just as Zena Dreyer did and so many others to win the 19th Amendment for equal citizenship, equal representation. So thanks again to Ray Claire, to Cora, and all the folks in Florida. And back to you, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. What an amazing story. That's incredible. It is inspiring. And I wish I could have been out with you on the road in Florida next time. But thanks for sharing the vision, and thanks to all the folks who supported him on that trip. And before we get on too long, let's now introduce Sam Daley-Harris, our good friend Sam Daley-Harris. Just a very quick background. Sam founded the Anti-Poverty Lobby Results and coached Citizens Climate Lobby, which I'm sure many of you have heard of, Citizens Climate Lobby, for the first 7 years, and now coaches groups like American Promise and the Quaker Lobby. And Sam, it's wonderful to have you on the call, so go ahead and take it away.
Great. Ben, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. It's a real honor to be with you, and I'm grateful to American Promise for having me on the call. We're recording the call, so you can listen to this training again if it will be helpful. It will be sent out tomorrow. Later in this section, you can push 1 to let Ben know you have a question or you want to make a comment, and we'll do that in a few moments. I want to start by sharing a quote that points to our predicament and how critical the structure of support American Promise offers is. This is from a Frank Rich column in the New York Times 9 years ago, but it could have been 9 seconds ago, followed by my response to it. Rich wrote, "Last weekend, a new poll found that only 24% of Americans believe their country's on the right track. That might mean that 76% believe the country's on the wrong track." Wrong track is a euphemism. We are a people in clinical depression. Americans know that the ideals that once set our nation apart from the world have been vandalized. And I'm going to repeat it. Rich wrote, "Last weekend, a new poll found that only 24% of Americans believe their country is on the right track. That might mean that 76% believe the country is on the wrong track." Wrong track is a euphemism. We are a people in clinical depression. Americans know that the ideals that once set our nation apart from the world have been vandalized. And my response to that quote is this: most nonprofit organizations don't acknowledge the toxicity into which they send their volunteer advocates. Consequently, they don't create a deep enough structure of support that can serve as the antidote to that toxicity. So whenever you volunteer with American Promise, you're volunteering with an organization that's committed to providing a structure of support that's an antidote to the toxicity. So let's get to work. In this section, I'll be doing 2 things, both aimed at being the antidote to the toxicity. I'll be doing a training, and then we'll take some action. First, I'll teach you a laser talk to help you be a better spokesperson for ratifying a 28th Amendment. Second, I'll lead a brief training on writing letters to the editor. In the letters to the editor section, I'll ask you to do some online research. So if you're near a device that allows you to go online, please get it now so we can use it during that training. First, the laser talk. Whenever I teach a laser talk, I say, this will be a little bit like being back in school, but it's one of the most powerful parts of any meeting I lead. In fact, I say, if you're here from another organization looking for something worth stealing, this is it. Then in a moment, I'm going to ask you to unmute everyone for the shout-out section. So here's how to work. In a moment, I'm going to go through this laser talk. Then I'll go back to the beginning and ask you some leading questions about the information in the talk and have you shout out the answers. So the first sentence goes like this: 8 out of 10 Americans agree that our political system is out of control. Then after I get through the whole talk, I'll go back to the beginning, and Ben, you can unmute everyone, and I'll ask some questions like these and have you shout out the answers. So, for example, I'll say, whoops, and then we may have to mute everyone if there are rooms where it's too noisy with either dogs barking or TV or talking. We'll play that by ear. So the first line is 8 out of how many Americans agree, and then you would shout out what? Okay, and I think, Ben, you put them all on mute, which is fine if there's too much background noise. You play that by ear. We don't need the shout-out if there's too much noise. So you'd shout out 10, and I'd say, yeah, 8 out of 10 America agrees that our political system is out of what? And you would shout out control. So then after I go through the whole talk, I'll go back to the beginning and ask questions like these and have you shout out the answers. So, I'll have you just think the answers. So, Ben, if there's anyone who knows they're in a room that has background noise, maybe they can mute themselves. We'll play this by ear. So here's the talk. No need to take notes. We'll send it out tomorrow. Just listen up as best you can. And I'm going to do this like on a tightrope without a net below myself. So let's see how I do. 8 out of 10 Americans agree that our political system is out of control. Billions of dollars are pouring into campaigns from corporations, unions, and the wealthy. A 28th Amendment would overturn the 2010 Citizens United Supreme Court decision that found that corporations have human constitutional rights and struck down limits on campaign contributions. This with terrible results. Here are 2 examples. When fossil fuel companies and other corporate polluters make large campaign contributions, action on climate change and protecting our land, air, and water is thwarted. When Wall Street firms buy politicians and financial corruption brings our economy to the brink, too many citizens lose their jobs, their homes, and their life savings, and Wall Street goes unpunished. Americans are seeing the urgency in passing a 28th Amendment, overturning Citizens United, and making sure that only people, not corporations, have human constitutional rights, and that reasonable limits can be set on campaign contributions. If you really want to drain the swamp, you'd start by overturning Citizens United. We need to write elected officials and urge them to lead on enacting a 28th Amendment overturning Citizens United. Now, we're doing this talk so that when we do the training on letters to the editor, you could use parts of it in your letters to the editor, or in a letter to your members of Congress, or in a conversation with a friend and that kind of thing. So, Ben, you play it by ear. You can unmute everyone. If there's too much noise, you can undo that. And I'm going to do the talk and ask you to shout out the answers. So just shout out the answers, and Ben, you're going to mute everyone if this is not working because there's background noise in some rooms. Let's play it by ear. So 8 out of how many Americans agree, and you shout out?
10.
Yeah, great. Oh, you guys are geniuses. Yeah, 8 out of 10 Americans agree that our political system is what?
Out of control.
Out of 10 Americans agree that our political system is out of control. Billions of dollars are flooding into what?
Campaigns.
Yeah, billions of dollars are flooding into campaigns from corporations, unions, and the who?
Wealthy.
Yeah, flooding into campaigns from corporations, yes, unions, and the wealthy. A 28th Amendment would overturn the 2010 what?
Citizens
United.
Yes, the 2010 Citizens United Supreme Court decision that found that corporations have human constitutional what?
Individual rights.
Yeah, corporations have human constitutional rights and struck down limits on campaign what?
Contributions.
Yeah, campaign contributions to startling consequences. For example, when fossil fuel companies and other corporate what?
Polluters.
Yeah, when fossil fuel companies and other corporate polluters make large campaign contributions. Action on what?
Climate environment.
Yes. Action on climate change and protecting our land, air, and what?
Water.
Yeah.
Water.
Action on climate change and protecting our land, air, and water is thwarted. When Wall Street firms buy who?
Politicians.
Yes. When Wall Street firms buy politicians and financial corruption brings our economy to the what?
Brink.
Yeah, brings our economy to the brink. Too many citizens lose their jobs, their homes, and their life's what?
Savings.
Yeah. Yes, too many citizens lose their jobs, their homes, and their life savings, and Wall Street goes what?
Unpunished.
Yeah, unpunished. Americans are seeing the urgency in enacting a what?
28th
Yeah,
Amendment.
see the urgency in enacting a 28th Amendment, which would state that who have human constitutional rights, not what?
Individuals, not corporations.
Yeah, people have human constitutional rights, not corporations, and that reasonable limits can be placed on campaign what?
Contributions.
Yeah, on campaign contributions. If you really wanted to drain the what?
Swamp.
Yeah, if you really wanted to drain the swamp, you'd start by overturning what?
Citizens
United.
Ben, these people are geniuses. Yeah, you start by overturning Citizens United. We need to write our elected who?
Officials.
Yeah, we need to write our elected officials and urge them to lead on enacting what, overturning what?
28th
Amendment.
Overturning.
Yes. You're great. That's great. Yes, we need to write our elected officials urging to lead on enacting a 28th Amendment, overturning Citizens United. Ben, if you would mute everyone, because we're going to do just to think the answer. We're going to do this one last time, just to get it a little bit more clear. You're going to just think the answer, not shout it out. So it'll go like this. 8 out of how many Americans agree, and you'll just think the answer. That's right. 8 out of 10 Americans agree that our political system is what? Is out of control. Billions of dollars are flooding into what? And you'll just think the answers. Billions of dollars are flooding into campaigns from corporations, unions, and the who? Yes, billions of dollars flooding into campaigns from corporations, unions, and the wealthy. A 28th Amendment would overturn the 2010 what? And just think it. Yes, the 28th Amendment would overturn the 2010 Citizen United Supreme Court decision that gave human constitutional rights to what? Yeah, Citizens United gave human constitutional rights to corporations and struck down limits on campaign what? Yeah, struck down limits on campaign funding, contributions with startling consequences. For example, when fossil fuel industry and other corporate what's? Yes, when the fossil fuel industry and other corporate polluters make large campaign contributions, action on what? Action on climate change and protecting our land, air, and what? Yeah, action on climate change and protecting our land, air, and water is thwarted. When Wall Street firms buy who? When Wall Street firms buy politicians and financial corruption brings our economy to the what? Yeah, when Wall Street firms buy politicians and bring our economy to the brink, too many American citizens lose their jobs, their homes, and their life what? Yeah, lose their jobs, their homes, and their life savings. Americans are seeing the urgency in enacting a what? Americans are seeing the urgency in enacting a 28th Amendment that would define only who, not what, as gaining human constitutional rights. Which would define people, not corporations, as having human constitutional rights, and would allow reasonable limits on campaign whats. And would allow reasonable limits on campaign contributions. If you really wanted to drain the what? If you really wanted to drain the swamp, the first thing you do is overturn what? The first thing you do is overturn Citizens United. We need to write our elected officials and urge them to lead on enacting what, overturning what. We need to write our elected officials, urging them to lead on enacting a 28th Amendment, overturning Citizens United. Great job. I mean, when you were shouting it out, you were great, so I assume thinking it, you were great. So as I said, typically at a meeting, we would now have you find a partner, and each of you take a chance doing the talk, and then ask for a volunteer to come to the front to deliver the talk. But since most of us are by ourselves, we won't do the pairing up. Practice the talk to get it better. You'll get a copy of it tomorrow. It doesn't matter if you leave some of it out or do it in the wrong order, but just congratulations for jumping out of the viewing stand and onto the playing field. Now we'll move on to the letters to the editor training. The goal of this section is to educate the public on a 28th Amendment, urge them to write letters to elected officials to lead on enacting a 28th Amendment, and get the word out as widely as we can through letters to the editor. So let me ask someone to tell us what a letter to the editor is. If you can tell us something about what a letter to the editor is, please press 1 on your keypad, and when Ben calls on you, just give your name and city and go ahead. Is there anyone who just tell us a sentence or maybe two about what a letter to the editor is? Press 1, and Ben will look for you, call on you, and you can give your name and city and go ahead. Who wants to go first? Oh, don't be shy.
We got some shy people here, Sam.
I don't know.
Hello,
Yeah, who is that?
this is Al Ehrenfried,
And where are you calling from?
Acton.
Okay, great. And do you want to tell us something about what a letter to the editor is?
No, I'm here to listen.
Okay, great.
Linda Bach would like to.
Linda, go ahead. Linda, where are you again?
Sammamish, Washington.
Sammamish, Washington. Go ahead.
A letter to the editor is written by a citizen who frequently reads that particular paper to express an opinion on a matter of importance within the community. Oftentimes it's for education. A lot of times when I read letters to the editor, I learn about issues in the area that I live and that I wasn't really that familiar about. So I think its very purpose is education.
Perfect. Okay. Who else? And one more, and I'm going to ask another question in a moment. Anyone want to add anything to what's a letter to the editor?
Hello?
Well, let me go on to my next question. As we start going over the steps you'll take to write a letter and have it published, let's start by seeing if anyone has had letters to the editor published before, and if so, what are the things that are important to help get a letter published? Who's had a letter published, and can you tell us what you think about to help get it published? Press 1, and when Ben calls on you, give us your name and city, and let us know what you think about, and then I'm going to go over a little training right after here. But I wanted to hear from people first. Anyone want to go? Okay, I'm going to assume that either no one's had a letter published or you have and you're shy. and that's okay. So let me go over some more steps because I'm going to call on you to do things as we go on. Step 1, embrace the fact that the vision we share, a 28th Amendment, overturning Citizens United, is a key step toward getting money out of politics, and that it can be circulated more widely within your community, in this case, in a letter to the editor, and that you are just the right person to do it. So step 2, go online and find out what is required to submit a letter. How many words? 150? 200? More? What email address is used to submit the letter, or is it done right on the website? What else do they require, like your name, address, and daytime phone number at the end of the letter? Usually you can Google the name of your paper and the phrase letters to the editor submission criteria to get what you need. So I'm going to ask those who are online right now to go ahead and Google the name of one of your local papers, a tiny one or a large one, and the phrase letters to the editor submission criteria. And I'll call on a few people to tell us what they found. Now, I did this yesterday, and I Googled Boston Globe, letters to the editor submission criteria, and this is what I got. And then I'll hear from you if you found something. Letters should be, this is from the Globe, letters should be written exclusively to the Globe. That means don't send your letter to 5 paper, only to us, and include the name, address, and daytime phone number. They should be 200 words or fewer, all subject to editing. And then they say you can send it by email, letters@globe.com. They give a fax number, and they give their regular mail address. So I'm going to check in. Has anyone been able to find, by Googling the name of your paper and the phrase letters to the editor submission criteria, has anyone found the criteria for your paper? Press 1 on your keypad if you have, and Ben will call on you. Ben, let me know if anyone's pushing 1.
Yeah, sure. Dave Colavato.
Dave, where are you calling from?
Well, I didn't hit a keypad, but I am on.
Okay, great.
Oh,
okay, but just stay with me, Dave.
Hold on.
What city?
Hold on a second. Gloria Duarte.
Yes, hi.
Gloria, where are you?
In Virginia.
Great.
In
What
Virginia,
paper did you Google?
The Virginia Pilot, which is the main paper in the state of Virginia, and it's actually pretty simple. It's just a contact information form, and they only.
Oops, did we lose?
And so that's pretty interesting. I thought it was more complicated.
Oh, so but how many words? Did they say how many words you could use?
250.
Okay, great. Okay. And did they give you an email address to send it to, or
no?
just do it right?
There is a form right there where I put all the contact information and type the letter and submit a word.
Okay. Well, let's see if there's one more. Let me hear if anyone can press 1, and because you found. Who is it?
Tricia Shermers.
Tricia, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Eden Prairie, Minnesota. And
oh, great. And what newspaper did you look up?
That's the Minneapolis Star-Tribune.
And what did you find?
So it is the same. It's the 250 words or less in length if you're writing a letter to the editor. They have also the same form can be used for doing commentaries, and those are 700 words. But it's an email form. So
you put it right into the form on the web page?
Correct.
Okay, cool. So, 250-word letter to the editor or 750-word longer opinion piece. Brilliant. Does anyone have – we're going to go on to another topic. Before we do, does anyone have a problem or a question? Just press 1, and Ben will call on you. I want to take a question or a problem from if someone's like struggling or stuck on something.
Looks like Gina Karachi.
Gina, what city are you in?
Cocoa, Florida.
Great. And do you have a question, or did you find the instruction?
Yeah, I was just going to tell you what Florida Today said, but I already left the page.
Great. So tell us, how many words do you get?
Hold on. Like I said, I lost the page now.
Oh, you lost the page.
Let's go to
problem.
Let's go to Ryan Daughtry while you find your page. Hey, Ryan.
Ryan, where are you?
I'm in Sacramento, California.
Great. And what paper?
The Sacramento Bee.
Great. And what did they tell you?
Well, something different that I haven't heard is they, to be considered, it must have the headline of the story or letter to which you are responding.
Great, perfect. Now, we're going to get into that a little later in this. So let's move on. Brian, that's great. Are we going back to Cocoa Beach, or we're just going to move on?
Go ahead, move on. My computer.
Okay, no problem. Good luck. I'm saying a blessing right now for your computer. Okay, so the next step is to go online and read a few headlines from the front page or the editorial page, looking for articles or opinion pieces that might provide a good angle for your letter. So what I'm asking you to do right now is to go online, or if you have the actual paper, grab it, and look for headlines on the front page or opinion page that you could use as an angle for your letter to the editor. So I'm going to give you one example. I found three. I'm going to give you one, and then let's see if you've got one. So there was an article, it'll be in a lot of papers. This was in the New York Times today. Kellyanne Conway promotes Ivanka Trump brand, raising ethics concern. And I started a letter to the editor like this. To the editor, the brouhaha over Kellyanne Conway touting Ivanka Trump's line of clothing is just the tip of the ethical challenges our country faces. When the Supreme Court decided the Citizens United case in 2010, giving corporations human constitutional rights, the voices of the citizens took a profound beating. And then, I don't know if I got 150 words, if I got 250 words. I'd probably pick a few things out from the laser talk, which we'll send around tomorrow, and I'd urge people probably at the end of my letter to write our elected officials and urge them to lead on 28th Amendment. I'm going to do one more, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. This is not easy. This is the important part. Finding an article that you can use as an angle to the message you want to say. So the next one is a Gail Collins column in the New York Times titled Elizabeth Warren Persists. And here's how I started my letter to the editor. Oh boy, can I not find it? Hold on. What I had said, now I'm seeing that I don't see it, like I lost it too. What I basically said was, buried in the article, Gail Collins says something about more senators would have been startled if they had not been sleeping in their offices or dialing donors for dollars. And I went on to say that's the biggest problem we're facing these days, the dialing for donor dollars, which is silencing Americans all across the country with more voice to corporations and the wealthy. Sorry, for some reason I've lost what I had written down here, and I written something gorgeous, but I can't read it to you. So let me ask again. Has anyone found a title in an article or an opinion piece that would be a good angle for a letter to the editor on the 28th Amendment? This is, there's kind of a lot of overarching things with the new administration, but you want something that's specific to key off of. So, Ben, is anyone pushing one to share?
Yeah, Lisa.
Yes.
Hi, Lisa.
Lisa, where are you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, where are you?
St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yes, tell me what you found.
The headline was Rubio Nelson face onslaught of pressure to vote against Betsy DeVos.
Okay, great. And what would be the angle? How do you use that to get into your...
Considering that she contributed about $100,000 to Rubio's campaign,
yes.
Basically it's like a pay to play kind of thing.
Great. Yes.
Something that kind of an angle.
Yes. So it's kind of like I read with interest your article titled whatever that title was, and it brought to mind the fact that our senator received some $100,000, et cetera, et cetera. However, you would let me hear if that's great. Who else? Does anyone else have an article that you found? I've got one more myself, but I want to see if you've got one.
Laura Nipmeyer had her hand up. Hey, Laura.
Laura, where are you?
Hi. I'm in Long Valley, New Jersey, and I'm looking at the Observer Tribune, which is our regional paper, the small one.
And what did you find?
Well, last week we had a big opinion piece on getting money out of politics. Unfortunately, the piece doesn't mention anything about the 28th Amendment or any details. It has no specific language. And I invited the author of that piece to join us tonight.
So is the author are they there? Was the author a writer for the paper or someone on the outside who wrote it?
No, it's they have alternating. The paper comes out once a week, and alternating they have views from this side, that side, and so this side was, let's get money out of politics, and actually he got a couple of responses. One was, hey, you don't understand money. Trump doesn't provoke jealousy, and if you have enough money, then you're kind of immune from these concerns.
Yeah.
And then another person wrote in and said, no, that's totally the wrong thing. But again, the whole dialogue got nothing about specifics or actions or anything like that. So I'm ready to pass on the whole conversation.
Okay, great. So great, that's great. Let me give one more, and then we're going to go to the end of this section. There was an op-ed also in the New York Times. I'm not urging you to do New York Times, but a lot of these things will be in other papers about an executive order where the administration wants to review and probably overturn a rule that would have investment firms put their clients' retirement interests first and overturn that. And so here's the letter that I started. To the editor, John Bogle's op-ed, Putting Clients Second, outlines a Trump administration attempt described by Gary Cohn, President Trump's new director of the Economic Council, and most recently president of Goldman Sachs, to review and likely overturn the Obama-era rule to have investment firms put clients' retirement interests and investments first. In what alternative universe would such a change make sense? I'll tell you what. In the world of the 2010 Citizens United Supreme Court ruling that declared corporations have the same rights as people and there need be no limits on campaign contributions, that's the place from which anti-person decisions will emanate. And so you get a sense where you're looking for, sometimes you have to be a little creative and in order to find the articles. So the ones I gave aren't perfect examples, but they give you an idea of how you can take an article and use it to share some aspect of our vision. Let me go on, and we're going to go to the last steps. So the next steps are to then read some letters to the editor in the paper you're writing to understand how readers begin them and the general tone. So it might be that the paper wants, like, I read with interest the article Elizabeth Warren's Silence, paren, front page, February 9th, end of paren. They might want that. And you'll get that by reading the other letters to the editor. So another step is reading some letters to the editor to see what their format is and their tone. And then the next step is use the format. Like if 250, do 250. It's 150 words. Make sure it's closer to 150. And then write and send your letter to the editor. If they reject your letter, try a smaller local paper. You might have to find a different article, or if the paper's small enough, you may be able to write a letter without it referring to an article. If your letter is published, celebrate, do a little dance, share it with American Promise staff, share it in social media, and share it with your elected officials. If it's not published, celebrate that you took the action. Eventually, you'll have a letter to the editor published, but only if you write it and send it. So our next call, 2 weeks from tonight, February 23rd, we'll see if anyone's had a letter published. We'll encourage those who sent theirs but were rejected, and we'll urge them to try a smaller paper, and we'll encourage those who didn't send it yet to do so. So let me just get any quick question. So we did this laser talk. You'll get a copy of it tomorrow. You can use parts of it in your letter to the editor. We've gone over how to find out how many words you get and how to submit it, and how to find an article to use as an angle to get our message across. You'll read some of the other letters that they've published to get the general structure and tone, and then you'll write yours and send it as they ask. So anyone have a quick question before we move on? Just press 1, and when Ben calls on you, give your name and city. Ben, do we have any questions?
It looks like Joan DeVore, but Joan, did you have your hand up before?
Yeah, Joan, was that from before?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Actually, I had found something for the Burlington County Times for editorial page. Which was
Please tell us what the headline is.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I don't have it anymore. But actually,
okay.
What I was thinking of was oh gosh. No, that was a couple of steps ago. In fact, Ben, I was just formulating an email to you.
Okay, great. So that's fine. So here's the deal. If you or anyone else has one more quick question, I'll take it now, and then if not, we're going to close things out. Press 1 and give your name. Go ahead.
Let's go to Greg Taylor.
Greg, where are you calling from?
Hey, thanks. I'm calling from Herndon, Virginia. We're about 30 miles west of Washington, D.C.
Great. Do you have a question or a?
Yeah, I've got just two quick related ones. One is about how long does it generally take after submission to get?
Well, yeah, and oftentimes there's a place you can find how long it takes. If you're writing a smaller paper, I wouldn't hesitate sending it off, and if a couple of days go by, call the editor if it's a smaller paper and say, I've submitted a letter and I just wondered, when you decide. Of course, if it's a paper that usually they will let you know if that's why they ask for your phone number and the like. They'll let you know if you're going to, they're going to publish it. In a paper like the New York Times, they say, if you haven't heard from us in 5 days, we aren't using it and you can use your letter somewhere else, kind of thing. But it depends on the size of the paper, how soon they let you know, and how often they publish. Do you have one more?
Okay, great.
Let's go to, Gloria Duarte.
Gloria, where are you calling again from?
In Virginia.
Virginia. Do you have a question?
Yes, I actually think you just responded right after I pressed 1, which is, can I use the same letter to multiple newspapers?
Well, here's the thing. A number of you have to look up the paper, and a number of them will say your letter has to be exclusive to us. And in those cases, the answer is no. Then there are other papers that, they don't have that kind of rule. And yes, you could use your letter with other papers. But you want to pay attention. You don't want to just blast them off willy-nilly, because among other things, you want to pay attention to whether they publish it. And then You want to post it on social media. You want to send it to American Promise. You want to send it to your member of Congress so that you make sure, and I'd follow up on the phone even, to make sure they saw it. Call an aide and say, I sent you my letter that was published. I wanted to make sure you saw it and see where the congressman or the state legislator stands on this issue. Great. Let's see if we've got one more. Ben, do we have someone else?
I think Laura had a follow-up question. Sorry, Laura.
Laura, where are you again?
I'm in Long Valley, New Jersey.
Okay, great.
I've noticed that a lot of the correspondence in the letter to the editor refer to either political parties or political positions, left, right, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering about your, let's see, I guess I'm asking, are we trying to completely avoid that, even if we know?
Let me say a couple of things. Number one, support for a 28th Amendment is not Democrat only or Republican. Number two, there is bipartisan support. I think it's an issue that will never make it through if we make it only Democrats or only whomever kind of thing. So I think we want to strive to make it clear how much of a common sense thing this is, not a Democrat or Republican or independent thing this is. So yeah, I think we want to get everyone on board no matter what party they're a member of. And if they're opposed, we want to move them to neutral and supporter eventually.
Great. Hey Sam, if you wouldn't mind, there was quite a few folks that posted questions up before the call, and there's ones that I think is actually really relevant that people might find interesting. Not that all of them aren't interesting, but this one in particular would. This one says, Elizabeth Doty, I hope you're still on the call, would be interested in writing letters to the editor in one's professional role, say as the leader of a company. There are different considerations and questions about what is appropriate, especially for officers of public companies. I'd like to encourage business people to write more.
Okay, so there might be a couple of ways she was going there. One is I can write a letter supporting a 28th Amendment as a private citizen. That's great. But if somehow or other I could get my company behind how commonsensical it is, and I would be able to write not only as a private citizen, but actually as executive vice president of XYZ, that might pull another extra weight. Now, I don't know if that's what she meant, but that's part of what I was pulling out of it. But letters from private citizens are equally important and something we really want to get out there.
Great. Thanks, Sam.
You have any others either pushed one on their keypad or one quick written down question?
Yeah, hold on. Joan DeVore, sorry, I had a follow-up.
Joan, you have one?
Go ahead,
Joan.
Joan.
I'm not sure which question I'm answering. It could be one from earlier on. But the whole idea of the investigation into Russian connections and the investigation into Trump releasing tax returns, it didn't seem quite related right off the bat, but the more I think about it, it's extremely related to the idea of conflicts of interest and potential influence of corporations and influence regarding.
Yeah, so a couple of things. This is great. One thing is what you want to tend, unless it's a tiny paper and it's a little less important, you want to tend to make your letter to the editor responding to an article in, let's say, today's paper. In other words, if it's a daily paper, you don't want to respond to an article from last week. So if you're going down that route of the president's tax returns or whatever, I would urge you to do it, if that's the heart of the letter in a way, the angle, make sure it's an article that's written about that topic kind of thing. And yeah, I think we don't actually know the extent of conflicts of interest because of not even seeing the taxes. So there is obviously some relevance, including some unknown relevance because of that secrecy, you might say. So here's the deal. We really are urging folks to take what you've learned tonight, take a whack at finding an article in your paper, writing a letter to the editor. It might be a good thing to do before you walk away tonight, meaning in the next 15 minutes after we hang up. Our call next week, if you can let Ben know, beng@americanpromise.net, that you did have a letter to the editor published. And if you didn't, please, please, please come back. We're going to spend this month and next month, not this much time, but this month and next month, celebrating the letters and encouraging people who still want to go for it to give it another chance and try and have their letter to the editor published. I'm going to close with this quote and then turn it back to Ben for a goodbye. This is from Apollo astronaut Rusty Schweickart, who wrote and said, "We aren't passengers on Spaceship Earth. We're the crew. We aren't residents on this planet. We're citizens. The difference in both cases is responsibility." And I'm going to repeat that. He said, "We aren't passengers on Spaceship Earth. We're the crew. We aren't residents on this planet. We're citizens. The difference in both cases is responsibility. Thank you for being crew, not passengers. Thank you for taking responsibility for our nation and the world, and for writing and sending your letters to the editor. Don't hesitate to listen to this call again if you think it would be helpful. The recording will come out tomorrow. And Ben, back to you to say good night.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much, Sam. That was amazing. And actually, I took everyone off mute, so if you want to give Sam a big round of applause and a thanks, that was wonderful. Let him know you enjoyed it.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sam,
Okay, thanks everyone.
Stuff. Yeah, that was incredible. So real quickly, I will be sending out an email tomorrow to everyone that was on the call. It will have the laser talk that we learned. It will have the recording of the call in case you want to listen to it again. There's also going to be a link in there that's a tool on American Promise's website that might make things a little bit easier for you when you're sending your letter to the editor, that if you plug in your zip code, it'll pull up a number of papers that are local to you and give you the contact information for that editor. So use that link. If you have any trouble finding it online, use this link and it'll make your life a little bit easier. You can actually send the letter through this program as well, through the American Promise website. So again, want to thank everyone. We will talk to everyone the 2 Thursdays from now. I'll pull up the date. Sorry, it's the 23rd.
23rd.
So mark your calendar for the 23rd, 8:30. We're going to have a follow-up on the letters and some more guest speakers and more training, and the core team calls will continue to go on. So thanks, everyone. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Sam. Bye-bye now.